Welcome back to Season 2 of Great Chat. I'm Sally. Today we're joined by Helen, Ashley, and Angela. This week we're talking about the buying spree from Meta, the acquihires, whatever you want to call them. How's the shift trickling down to other companies competing in the space? But first, a quick shout out to our sponsor, Mercury. Mercury is the fintech used by over 200,000 companies to simplify their finances. We're huge fans of Mercury at Great Chat, and we use it to run this podcast. Additionally, a few of us are also current customers for our funds and startups. Not to mention dozens of startups we've backed as VCs, angels, scouts that run their businesses on Mercury. Something I love about Mercury is how straightforward the onboarding flow was. Using it is a delight, and I'm excited to see them reach more startups and small business owners who listen to this podcast. If you're launching a startup or a fund, visit mercury.com to apply online in 10 minutes or less. Quick note, Mercury is a financial technology company, not a bank. For more details, check out our show notes. And a quick reminder, have questions for us? We answer them each week. Don't forget to submit all your burning questions at anothergreatchat.com.
Hey everyone.
Hi ladies.
Hi.
My goodness. Angela, where are you and when are you?
It is 1 a.m. in Taipei, where I am trying to survive in this sweltering heat. But I hear that New York is also going through a heat wave, so I guess there's not a lot of sympathy for me.
Yeah, it's a high of 100 degrees today, so very grateful for AC.
So Angela, what are you doing in Taipei? And we're bringing back, what is Angela watching?
Right now, what I'm reading are my health reports from the full body health scan that I did. So I came to Taipei to human traffic myself for some cheaper Prenuvo scans. It's basically like Prenuvo plus CT plus like a bunch of ultrasound. So it's like this whole experience. It's like a spa / hospital. I had my own hotel room with a bed, and there was like a lounge that's like a tranquility lounge with snacks and different like flavors of water, and like an exercise center. So between all the different tests that you do, you can just go relax and take a nap or hang out in the tranquility center. So I think it's Prenuvo could take a few notes in terms of the user experience. But I don't know, my hot take is actually I'm not sure that the experience was really like worth anything other than having a baseline of what my health scans are. So maybe that's like the best case outcome, that there was nothing terrible, but I can understand why the US health system does not pay for everyone to get like the full battery of tests.
I want to try the Neko Health, the one that Danielle X started, that's out in, I think, Sweden or somewhere. And I think they're trying to expand it across Europe. It's like a cheaper version of Prenuvo and Function Health and what you're doing that's like supposed to be more attainable, but I think they got a bunch of funding for it.
I love it. Medical tourism on the pod. Or human trafficking, longevity, as Angela says.
Oh, I know. I was catching up with an old colleague, and we were joking that like the core tenets of our team at one point were human trafficking, plagiarism, and like we're like without context, it sounds really terrible. But yes, human trafficking is always a core tenet of life. I'm trying to human traffic myself to Europe right now for the rest of summer. So
I feel like a conversation I've been having a lot these days remind me of like the Web3 crypto era, which I think a criticism of crypto was that it was technology in search of a use case. I feel like I'm meeting with extraordinarily cracked teams who've built like really incredible, agents, or they're working on technology that like really competes with like a lot of the like mid-journey, like very, very well-funded startups that are tackling like the Gen AI sort of video space. And, they're curious what use cases might be compelling for them to pursue. And I feel like that's a conversation I'm having over and over and over again. And I think we've kind of reached this point where there's a lot of great technology. Some better than others, but like most of it is really, really great and really talented people are working on it. And then we're trying to figure out the go to market or to figure out like what the market size would be for the technology. And so I don't know what that signals. I never want to be too ambitious and say like, this is why marketing is so important, or this is why lived experiences are interesting, because I think in San Francisco, we pay a premium for like really young founders. And like, I think sometimes naivete can be like an advantage in many ways. But yeah, that's something I'm thinking about a lot lately, and kind of how we're in this moment.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, my first job was at an enterprise software company founded by people who'd never worked at an enterprise. So I hear you. But yeah, I'm seeing a lot of this too, like a lot of creativity, but maybe lacking that like real world application at the moment.
Yeah, I think especially in the video and like image multimedia space, the first movers in this space were all the prosumers that were creating these images. And like, I think there's a large market that's been carved out for it. But as the market grows and that there's so many different companies that are producing video models, like one of the, like, I just listed out a bunch of, there's the Midjourney came out with a new video, VO3 from Google. There's two of the Chinese companies, Minimax and I forget the other one. There's Korea. Like, there's so many different video models that have even come up in the last 2 to 3 weeks, even, and not very much differentiated across like the technology now. I mean, there's obvious nuance in like how well these models react and prompting. I think where it's going to be interesting is how much of the enterprise adoption happens. But like, are there going to be really 20 different image and video models? I don't think so. One subgenre that's come up in this whole video and image gen, and I'm not saying this is a business model, but this is like a following that's been created, is I don't know if you guys have seen the AMSR?
ASMR.
ASMR.
Oh,
ASMR.
ASMR. ASMR image videos. There's a huge video following of those. There's all these video models, these multimodal models are creating those videos. And then the animal videos at the Olympic Stadium, I don't know if you saw those. There's a whole genre.
The cats on the diving boards, I keep seeing that.
It was
like
peak
cats,
internet.
and dogs also, but cats were I think one where there was real product market fit. With the
I think I will say that the thing that's really interesting about them using Olympic rings is the Olympic rings are incredibly hard to produce on image models and video models. So you can actually tell through the logos which models are doing really well.
Oh, so that's a flex. If we see the Olympic rings, they're telling us
exactly.
We are elite level video generation. Funny.
But yeah, we're seeing I think more of the studios starting to adopt these image and video models, but the entertainment space is market size is not as huge as people actually think. Maybe in terms of gaming it's pretty big. It gets a lot bigger, but that did bring up one question, and I think that's a good segue maybe into our like big topic of the day: consolidation, M&A, acquihire, like whatever you want to call it. In the last few weeks, we've had a ton of these announcements in this space, and really a race for talent. So obviously there was the OpenAI and Johnny Ives IO, and that I think is considered an acquihire. We obviously had the Scale AI where Alex Wang was hired, but Scale, there was an investment. Again, I would consider that an acquihire. I put down the list here. Meta considered buying Super Safe Intelligence. That's Elias Fitzger's company, again, for talent. There's Nat Freeman from GitHub CEO Daniel Gross. And then Perplexity has always been thrown around as a potential M&A target. So I think that this kind of brings the like question of, there's so many different questions for like younger folks maybe that are in companies like Scale. They see this deal happen. Their CEO, their like ringleader, has now left to join Meta. I'm so curious what people think about that. And also, like Helen, you've been at Facebook early days where there was massive amounts of great deals and M&A and volumes of people coming in. I'm curious what your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I mean, I think acquisitions are really interesting because sometimes it's the underlying technology and the user base, and sometimes it's really the team that gets to join the company. So when I was at Facebook, I was there from 2008 to 13. Like the acquisitions I remember during that time were Friend Feed, which was Brett Taylor and this incredible small team, and they all had like very important roles across the company. Brett Taylor, of course, being CTO. Um, and there was Parse, there was Beluga, which was Facebook Messenger, which is something I still use today, which is so funny. It's like peop
Parse?
Parse is like developer tools. So it was more on the platform side. And I think that was like one of the larger sort of developer sort of acquisitions of the time. And then Instagram, of course, which I absolutely remember driving to work and looking at my phone and seeing that we acquired Instagram for $1 billion. And I was like, oh my God, what a waste. I was wrong. So uh,
Would
I'm
that be
like,
considered Facebook's best acquisition?
probably. I mean, I feel like
I don't know. WhatsApp is
too
probably
early
up
to
there.
tell. I mean, what they paid a lot more for WhatsApp, right?
Which
But
in
I feel
today's
like,
terms feels like all
oh,
rounding error at this point.
absolutely, absolutely. But I feel like Instagram was strategically important because it just sort of like picked up the curve of where Facebook was kind of like dying a little bit, just in terms of just general usage. And Instagram like continued to grow for like a decade after that. So uh, you know, I think that people are really focused on or Facebook and like the sort of acquisition spree right now, but I feel like Zuck just does whatever it takes to win. Because you could think of a ton of other examples where like he didn't acquire, right? So like Instagram Reels was a ripoff of you name it. He'll like basically when he gets to war, he goes to war and he wants to win. It's like he's got every tool at his disposal, and he's just gonna figure out how to get there. And I think acquisitions are often one of choice, but not one that I feel like he overly leans on. So right now, it does feel like he's really really leaning on this, and mostly, yeah, like Sally said, I think it is on the acquihire side. I think another thing that Silicon Valley loves to do is like sort of create like a cult of personality or like this sort of hero worship, like savior, right? So it's like Alex Wang. I mean, yes, he just made a lot of money, but think about the pressure that is on this very young person to basically save Meta's entire AI strategy. And the fact that they're acquiring, other leaders in the space and they're going to report to Alex is like, that's a pretty big deal. But it is something that, I've seen Facebook do, but I think the Valley does generally, which is just like we just put a lot of eggs in leaders' baskets and just say, like, this is our solve.
I also think that if you're an employee at scale, what are you thinking about right now? Because remember, before this, a few months ago, we had Character AI had a very similar deal with, I think it was with Google, where the founder and CEO went over to Google. I think Inflection and Microsoft was kind of a similar acquihire type of deal. And
I mean, Microsoft was really the pioneer with this,
yeah,
right? Like Microsoft kind of pioneered this model with Inflection.
I mean, I think the difference though is character and inflection didn't have revenue, and scale actually has like there's a real business there. Like we don't talk about those businesses because there were no businesses to be
but
like
even that,
talked about.
like the
For
scale
them.
one is interesting because one of the largest customers, or maybe the largest, was OpenAI, and they just said that they're no longer going to be working with scale, even though Alex Wang and Sam Altman, I think they were roommates during COVID, they're good friends, but once these types of deals happen, at the end of the day, it's business, and so scale as its value as a standalone company has diminished. So like, what do you do if you're at scale? Are you trying to get acqui-hired as part of the team, or are you staying?
I think you're
No, I
probably
was
like
saying that's why
wondering
they
if you
paid.
get a payout when your vesting schedule is, or how sort of, your path to liquidity has been impacted by this, if at all, which I'm starting to hear more stories of people being like, nothing really changed unless you're Alex or, some select folks that are actually going over to Meta, which that that's really unfortunate.
Yeah, I have a friend who actually like just joined Scale, so crazy timing. Obviously, signed before the acquisition, and I think the good news is there's so much demand for AI talent that like I don't know, you can kind of afford to wait and see what happens. With Scale specifically, obviously the part of their enterprise business serving other LLMs. OpenAI is already churning. Apparently, Meta is going to, make up a lot of those lost contracts. But then there's the whole more like enterprise, helping like enterprise companies build AI products side of the business. So kind of remains to be seen. But like from my understanding, people are just waiting to see what's going on, and knowing that there's so much movement within the AI landscape that that there will be opportunities regardless.
Yeah, and I always talk about how if, for these foundational model companies, there are three things you need. You need talent, you need compute, and you need data. And compute can be solved mostly on just capital alone. Data, I think, most of the LLM companies have, they have access to pretty much similar amounts of data, yeah, give or take here and there. So when these companies are scaling so quickly, what their constraint and their bottleneck really ends up being the talent. So I can see it much more enticing, not just the like big companies like the potential of Perplexity or the scale size, but the smaller companies. There was a company that I invested in early on called Carbon that got bought by Perplexity, and that was a acquihire play. The entire team went and joined Perplexity to help build out one of the businesses. And I think we're going to see a lot more of these. We saw a huge onset of investments on these earlier stage companies. I'm actually curious with you, Helen, and Ashley, how you guys think about that as you start, you're investing in these AI companies with like great talent, and then you see, maybe another player that's much bigger in the space. Are you hedging for that, or like how do you guys think about that as you invest in these companies?
I don't personally have, a specific take or an action that I've changed as a result, but I don't think it's just specific to AI. Although I think OpenAI has been probably one of the bigger players doing some of these acquihires or acquisitions of very small startups. But I have heard of GPs, starting to look at their safe notes, just sort of like every sort of term sheet that they're putting out, where they're putting in provisions around these scenarios where the company decides to shut down, return capital, and then they go join, let's say OpenAI, who gives very large signing bonuses. It's like, well, would that company and founders have gotten on OpenAI's radar had it not been for the initial sort of like capital, right, that got that team off the ground? And I don't know, like we haven't seen any litigation around this yet, but I feel like there are enough stories now that I don't think that that's far off.
It feels like it is only a matter of time, and I'm only like half kidding in saying this, that like investors will evolve to figure out how to take stakes in people and not just companies, just given how
a ton are already doing
valuable.
this. Like I think,
Wait,
yes,
like directly in people?
well, so I feel like the creator economy stuff, right? The creator
yeah.
fund stuff actually like kind of paved the way, and yeah, I'm gonna be interested to see kind of like how these things converge. If the same fund sort of executes on that. But yeah.
One fun discussion we were having was about how these stories make it to the news. And so I have some perspective as a former journalist and editor, but I'm curious, Helen, as your like marketing hat on, what are you thinking when you see the news flooding through? What's the strategy? And yeah, how do you want to get involved?
Every time I see a leak, I don't know why. I think the company leaked it is like my default. If you remember in like 2016, it really felt like Uber's corporate comms strategy and their internal comms strategy were one. Like, because we were just reading all of the internal emails like as they were coming out, and it was fascinating. And or was it 2017? I don't remember, but it was and I think that yeah, but like there have been times where there were big leaks. Okay, so like at Facebook, around 2010, we had a really big leaking problem. I think there was this famous email that Zuck sent out, and there were a bunch of permutations of it, so that like maybe he could narrow down the group of suspects. But the subject line was "Please resign," and I remember being on the shuttle and getting it, and like everybody else got it, and like your heart just stops. But it was basically addressing that, like, we're having too many leaks, And if this is you, you should resign.
One
Yeah.
way that the company actually does this, and I don't know if you guys have done it, is they will like change some of the wording of the press release and then give it out to like A/B test. And if the actual full screenshot, the reason why reporters no longer screenshot emails is because of that. So they either paraphrase,
Oh,
because they will plant words in there to
fascinating.
try to track who's leaking the stories. But from my experience, and I may be looking at you, former banker Angela, a lot of bankers also love to speak about, because it's part of their business, and so they need these deals to continue to happen and discussions to come and more deal flow to come. I will maybe one mechanical way that we reported on these things is for like standards for traditional media like CNBC, we need at least two sources that are directly linked to the story. And then if it's tendentially related, then it's an editor's decision to decide how many sources you need. I will say, without going into too much of the details, that across every party during the Uber story, because I remember it's 2017 because I moved to San Francisco in 2017 to start reporting on the Uber story, and it was everyone from company, employee, investor, board, banker, all of it. It's almost like if you weren't part of the story, are you even part of Silicon Valley? But I thought it was it's just interesting to see all these like leaks happen in a very short span of time.
Well, this is a killer use to bring it back. This is the killer use for blockchain. Just kidding.
Oh my gosh.
There.
We found a way back to Web3. Thank you.
I mean, there's a huge difference between sanctioned and unsanctioned leaks, right? So like Helen, what you were talking about was unsanctioned. And those tend to happen a lot when like companies are in a little bit of disarray or there's some internal disagreement with the direction of leaders. There are some companies that have been notoriously tight with information like Apple to avoid that. There are companies that are more porous. And so
Mark Gurman.
Reporters will literally get recordings of all hands like as they're happening. They're getting like live streamed, right? But like sanctioned leaks are almost in some ways more interesting when you want to leak strategically because, it's not as simple as, okay, like I'm the CEO of this company that just got this acquisition offer, and now I'm going to go to CNBC and like tell them about it off the record. And Sally, maybe that did happen like that, but I think you actually lose quite a bit of credibility as a company in doing that. And also you want to be able to have like plausible deniability for future rumors. So if you establish a track record of always like saying yes or no about rumors, and then suddenly there's one you don't want to talk about, it's a weird signal. And actually, I feel like this is where founders and maybe their comms teams really leverage their cap tables to help get stories out there. So going to one of your investors or like, the comms lead at a VC firm or even an angel feels a little bit safer. So it's a little bit less tied to the company because you generally don't want your fingerprints on it, but you can tell when there are fingerprints. I mean,
oh yeah.
Anytime you're reading a story and there's a rumor, like ask who does it benefit for this rumor to be out there? And that'll usually lead you to like a 90% approximation of who that leaker might be.
Oh my God. As you were saying that, I was just thinking about how like VC has changed so much. Like there are so many players and everyone is so loud and everyone has their own platform. But before, I used to refer to VCs as the third invisible hand, sort of like behind the scenes that are playing a very important role in how these stories are shaped, right? And like, I remember sitting at my desk at Plaid, like, and talking about that. And that wasn't even that long ago. So, it's just such a contrast, like where we are today. I asked a reporter friend, like, about covering VCs or like, oh, why didn't you ask them for a quote? Or, did they want to talk about this? And she was like, Helen, why would I ever ask VCs for a quote? I can just they tell you what they think, every minute, on every issue, you can just quote them on Twitter. Like, I don't really want to meet VCs. And I was like, fair. But I don't think it's always been that way.
I used to beg VCs to do media interviews for like Box's early funding rounds. So yes, the world has changed dramatically. Now you like would have to like duct tape them down and restrain them. So
I mean, it sounds like we're talking about like the entertainment industry in Hollywood. Like if didn't know that this was a tech podcast and I just listened to you guys talk, it sounds like, celebrities and their entourage. So I guess VCs are the new PR agents or something like that.
I think VCs want to think that. But no, I wouldn't. I still feel so. I'm like fresh off of being in LA for a few days, and I just am so overwhelmed at how much cooler everything is than the Bay Area. I'm just like, this
Oh
place
my God. I made the mistake of staying at the Santa Monica proper hotel, and I've never felt so old and uncool.
Yes, basically that.
But we're trying to make San Francisco cool again.
Right, exactly. Trying really hard. But the other interesting thing was like obviously most of the people that I reconnect with when I'm in LA are like former SF folks or people who work in tech, and very few of them feel really strongly about LA. They're like, yeah, I'll probably move back to SF. So I don't know what it is other than like I think LA, New York are like culture makers. When you think of even internationally, when you think of America, you think of New York and LA, and I feel like San Francisco is still just sort of.
I mean, the interesting
it.
word there is I think the culture of startups is really changing, and like not to go down the route of like the Cluey approach to like their launch and the like culture that they're trying to build. It goes back to the like cult of personality, which is more of a not regional, but more like invisibly, how cultures are being brought up with these startups is really interesting to me. I think it's tougher for certain groups in this like, I don't know, this like new age of like very loud and very kind of fraternity like startup scene. But yeah.
I still don't know what Cluey is or Cluey, like, and like how many people outside of like the tech Silicon Valley universe even like no. I feel like it's like built up to be this thing, and I don't know what
marketing
it is.
Geniuses, like, they are
Cluey, Labubus, like these things. Like I have like, what are these things that are happening on the
these things?
Sally, I like that. That upsets me so
don't
much.
Ask me anything
you have
about
to
Labubus.
explain why do you have one of those?
No,
How much did you spend to get that? How many did you purchase?
No, for the record, I did not pay, and I'm not going to associate myself with Labubus.
What is a Labubu? What is a Labubu?
From what I know is Rose or one of the Blackpink members made this popular.
Lisa.
And so Lisa, sorry.
Thank you.
I know I'm a bad Korean. Yeah.
Bad Korean, Sally.
But yeah, now it's a thing. It's like I forget if it was Helen or Angela said, it's like the Beanie Babies of our era.
I think you need to describe it for our listeners who are not watching the video and have never heard of such a thing.
I have no authority on describing what this is, except for me just being part of the hype and winning it at a mahjong night, and very excited about it. And I've put it on my bag wherever I go. But beyond that, I don't really fully understand the hype. I think you can like put tattoos on it, get them dressed in various things, but
I'm impressed that our government has not banned them, because aren't they Chinese manufactured?
Oh, yeah,
there's probably like sensors in there. This is probably just a ploy by the CCP to track people. Like how has this not been cracked down? Like
That's right.
Where is our government when we need them the most? They need to protect us from the Labubus.
Okay, amazing. On that note, let's go to some of the questions. This Q&A is brought to you by Perplexity. Want answers? Just ask. And I kind of love it because our first question is a little bit in the style realm. It is, maybe this is a silly question, but what are some of your favorite places to shop for startup appropriate work clothes? I worked in finance before and my wardrobe is totally wrong. I'm in my late 20s. And let's just assume this person is in San Francisco, because I think it's important to have like a regional anchor. And I'm honestly flattered that we're getting questions, style questions to Great Chat. So who wants to take it?
Considering like most of us are just wearing the black every single time.
Or free swag.
No, I'm curious, Sally, how you would answer this question. I feel like you're pretty stylish.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I will say
In her Kleiner Perkins sweatshirt.
Oh yeah. Never mind. I take it back.
freebies.
I take it back.
I think depending on the region, I dress differently. Maybe I'll put it that way. So when I'm in San Francisco, I'm usually in just like a sweatshirt and jeans. I was just in London for the London Tech Week and Founders Forum, and everybody's dressed to the nines and in nice, dress shirts. And then when I'm in New York, I'm wearing black. But I tend to just lean on black because I don't have to think so much about what to wear. That doesn't actually answer the question. Where do we shop? Is that the question?
Where do you shop? Where do you shop? Where do you get this stuff?
I don't know. Instagram targeting is really good. So a lot of Instagram shopping for me. I don't know, Helen, where are you shopping?
I don't like to think when I shop, so I feel like I will do like a bulk run of Everlane
Oh yeah.
or something like that, where like everything I buy is black.
Guys, I think we need to be cooler. Where can we get some like swag
We live
hoodie
in
and like
San Francisco. There's not.
I know. I get like very stressed out when I have to go to New York or anywhere outside of San Francisco because I'm like, what do I wear? All I have are sweaters and jeans. I have nothing else to offer the world beyond. Although, like, did you guys see that New York Post article about that viral photo of the Gen Z crowd where like everyone was just wearing like jeans and a black tee?
Baggy clothes is
actually,
back.
I was in Malibu and I went into this cute shop, and on the rack, it was all like used Levi's, like, gently
Yeah,
worn,
vintage Levi's is a thing.
but they were like $200 to $300. And then there were these
Yeah.
sweatshirts that look like
I'm wearing
they
them.
were also great, but also $200. And I'm like, okay, if this is the look, I swear I have all these things. This is so exciting.
I would say like this is my Roman Empire for the next few weeks. So you guys will just have to deal with it. But I am going to the Backstreet Boys concert at the Sphere opening night, and I've been like very stressed out about what I should wear. So I did ask Perplexity like what I should wear to the Millennium Tour, and they actually made this great suggestion. Do you guys remember like those like butterfly
Yes, facts.
1,000%
for your hair, like
cornrows, little baby
yes,
cornrows.
yes.
Yes. Deciding that was appropriation. Yes. With glitter and then the butterfly clips. Yeah.
Yes. So that's going to be, I'm going to work that into my outfit as a late 30s.
Amazing.
Please include it in the show notes.
Yes.
Angela.
Okay, next question.
All right, next question. Totally different flavor. My CEO tweets all the time about how he works on weekends. I think I know that type. He hasn't said anything directly, but does that mean I need to be working on weekends too? Who wants to take this one?
I have this like weird take, and I feel comfortable expressing this because I'm not currently managing anybody right now. But when I was in my 20s, it was almost like this trauma response of like, email all day. Like email response time SLAs was like 30 seconds. And that was a 24/7, absolutely no boundaries, whether it was weekends, nights. But these days, I feel like people in their 20s have like a healthy relationship with work. And I think overall that is net positive for society. But I'm still going to age myself with this one. I'm a little bit like, wait, but isn't that core to like what your 20s career experience is like? So I don't know. The way that I would answer this is like, it's on that CEO to be a little bit more explicit on, and address the company on what the policies are and what the expectations for work are. But, I think that performance is not correlated with response times or how much you work. And I think the best thing about startups is that, performance is really rewarded based on like impact and contribution to the company. That's like one of the best things about working at startups. So I don't know, if you work at a startup, I would still sort of err on that because, if you want to be gold on like number of hours worked or something else or FaceTime, right? Like I think there are other places you would have chosen to go.
Or your CEO is just going to go to like ChatGPT and get it done without you, and then you won't have a job anymore.
Oh, Angela, with the real talk. I will say it's like, Helen, I feel like I have some of the same millennial trauma as you, and I worked insane hours in my 20s. And my first startup job was at Box, and Aaron Levy was, I assume still is, like a night person, would work until like 2, 3 a.m. And I also was a night person. And so I would like be on GChat at like 2 a.m. talking strategy. And as insane as that sounds, it was amazing. Like if you're actually trying to get like founder time and they're working weird hours and you want to work some weird hours too, it can be very strategic. But yeah, everyone gets to figure out what their own boundaries are. And then also at the end of the day, like a founder, this is their baby. They're gonna, spend their time and energy differently than an employee is. And so I don't think the bar is like what a founder does, but yeah, like be strategic, be opportunistic, but also, it's a job. And even if we didn't learn that lesson in our 20s, we eventually did in our 30s.
But I think earlier stage, if you're like on the founding team, to your point, Ashley, about the CEO founder and like founding team, that's kind of what makes it a little exciting, is that you guys are just in the trenches together. And so, yeah, I don't know. I feel like the lines are blurred again, which is, I'm not saying it's healthy, but lines are blurred between, work life and weekends, is my opinion.
All right, let's end with a big one. What are some of the biggest regrets from earlier in your careers?
Pass.
Right?
That I didn't go work at Facebook in 2008.
I hear this from every Stanford grad. I hear this from every Stanford grad. So incredible. So yeah, so Facebook's office, in the beginning, the offices were right off University Ave, downtown Palo Alto. So like, you could roll off the Stanford campus. And what was so funny is I felt like a lot of the early employees, particularly the non-technical ones, were like the ones who didn't have an immediate graduation plan. Right. So like the ones that were super type A, like they were like, I'm going straight to law school or I'm going to investment banking or whatever. But the ones that were sort of like, hey, we'll just sort of take a couple of years to figure it out and go join user operations and file tickets of people who have been out, like locked out of their accounts. Well, what's crazy is literally just like Angela just said, every Stanford grad around that era, their biggest regret in their career is like not having that. So that's a good takeaway for new grads, right? Sometimes not having a plan can be to your benefit.
Well, but that time, I mean, that was like coming off of the that was like everyone was, that whole generation, our generation was traumatized from what happened to the tech industry in 2000, 2001. And so everyone wanted to work at Microsoft, to work at like a stable job. And then like startups weren't a thing, but startups are a thing now. So I guess you have to look for the next thing that's not cool or desirable anymore.
I know, but now everyone wants to work at OpenAI, so we're back to like big companies being the talent magnets. All right, guys, this was great.
That was fun.
We'll see you next week.
I missed you guys. This was great.
See you guys next week.
Thank you for listening to Great Chat. Have questions for us? Make sure to submit them at anothergreatchat.com. See you next week. Thank you.